Modern employers and bosses are the absolute scum of the earth. They first bitch and complain endlessly about how Gen Z doesn't want to work. Then, they publicly admit that they specifically don't want to hire Gen Z. And now, even if they hire them, they're specifically firing them as fast as they can. These insane levels of hypocrisy are obviously super frustrating to deal with as a young person, especially in a stupid, materialistic society that views you as nothing more than your job and how much money you make. If you're a Gen Z watching this, understand that it's definitely not your fault and that modern employers and bosses are the problem here. With all that being said, the question remains, what can you actually do about it? Part 1. You must mentally disconnect your own self-worth from your job income. If you just got fired, something that can be just as devastating as losing your monetary income is losing your self-worth as a human being and feeling like a failure. We live in a piece of shit society that judges your entire worth as a human being based on how much money you make. Even your parents, who are supposed to love you unconditionally, will treat you worse than a dog if you don't have a job. This is just so ridiculous on so many levels. But I digress. We're here to talk about solutions, not problems. The first thing you have to do is psychologically separate your own self-worth from your job or how much money you make. Even if all of society and your family judge you based on stupid metric, you can learn to not judge yourself this way. You are not just a number on a spreadsheet. You're not just a machine to pump money into the GDP. Even if the rest of the world views you this way, you don't have to view yourself this way. I'll give you an example of how you can do this. Thanks to all your guys' wonderful support, this channel's growing quite fast, and we are starting to make ad revenue from it. That being said, it's still a small channel, and it's not that much money at all. But you know what? I view myself as being way more successful now than when I was making a lot more as an early investor in crypto. I'm actually building a community, giving back to the next generation, and helping people who went through the same struggles I did. To me, this is way more fulfilling than watching someone else's project that I just happened to invest in go up. I'm 100% serious in saying that I feel a much bigger sense of achievement when I read one of your comments about how this channel and community has made a difference for you. So how can you apply these principles to your own life if you just got fired or can't find a job? Start by rejecting society and your parents' definitions of failure and success and setting your own instead. It's actually ironic that this piece of shit society tries to tell you that you're a failure if you get fired, when this society is the absolute biggest failure ever itself. It failed to create a better future for its youth. It failed to fix the economy that it ruined itself. It failed to improve overall wages and working conditions for over 50 years now. I could go on and on about all the ways society has been an absolute failure itself. And so, who the fuck is this society to call you a failure? It has long lost that right, and it's time for you to set your own standards of failure and success. Let's say after months of being depressed and not leaving the house, you went out for a quick jog and workout in the morning. You can give yourself permission to feel happy about this. Even if you won't get paid for it, even if you're not going to get a million likes on Instagram for it, you did something positive for yourself, and that's all that matters. I recently had a stretch where I didn't post a new video for a few days because one of my close friends was going through a personal issue, and I wanted to spend some time to help him through it. Society might view me as a worthless piece of trash those 2 days because I didn't make any money and pump more digits into their soulless GDP. But guess what? Fuck them. Even if I didn't make money for 2 days, I did something far more important, and no one is going to tell me otherwise. You get the idea. Judge your own self-worth based on your health, happiness, fulfillment, and the positive impact you're making on those around you, not based on how much money you make. Part 2. What to do financially. Okay, so that was a nice inspirational speech and all, but it doesn't change the fact that you still need money, right? You still need to feed yourself and to live somewhere. And this is a huge problem if you just got fired or can't get a job. So, what can you do? The first thing I would say is get any type of assistance you can, whether that be from your parents or from welfare. Don't feel bad about it and don't look back. There's a whole stigma around poor people receiving welfare, which is really stupid because the tiny $300 per month or whatever you receive in food stamps is a tiny rounding error compared to the massive trillions of dollars governments have spent bailing out the failed businesses of the rich. This once again proves my point that this society doesn't really have a problem with income redistribution, welfare, or people getting free stuff. They have a problem with poor people getting free stuff. When rich people get way more free stuff from the government, no one bats an eye. So if you can get some assistance, please do it. This economy sucks way too hard to give a shit about some boomer asshole screaming something about bootstraps or whatever. Try to find a way to stabilize your baseline living expenses like food and shelter. You can find some local food banks or learn to cook cheap $1 recipes, as I've mentioned in previous videos. And if your parents will let you live with them, do it even as a temporary solution. You want to minimize your living expenses as much as possible to buy you time to make your next move. Part 3. Build individual skill sets instead of looking for a job. Whenever I make one of these videos, I always get comments like, "But how do you survive without a job?" You need a job, otherwise you'll go homeless and starve, right? First of all, in this modern economy, inflation is so bad and jobs pay such dog shit wages that you're going to go homeless and starve, even if you have a job. In fact, many people already are. And secondly, as you've seen, not everyone can get a job, even if they wanted to right now. So telling those people to get a job doesn't solve anything either. What you should do instead is build individual skill sets that allow you to survive independent of having a job. There are a countless amount of online side hustles or freelance work you could do, from captioning to video editing to tutoring. I would stay away from tech personally, as the market is just way too saturated at this point. If you can minimize your living expenses, as we talked about in the previous section, this should give you some breathing room to work with. Part 4. Avoid getting a job again at all costs. Getting a job in this economy was already damn near impossible in the first place. But if you've been fired or have some gaps in your resume, it's going to be even extra difficult. You're probably going to have to apply hundreds, if not thousands of times, just to get a few interviews where you're not likely to get the job anyways. Oh, and even if you do somehow beat these insane odds and get a job, it's going to pay such dog shit wages that it's not going to be worth it anyways. I recently realized something ironic, which is that we get pressured so hard from our parents and society to get a job because they tell us that as adults, we should be financially independent. The insane irony of this statement is that a job itself doesn't make you financially independent at all. All it does is shift your dependency from your family or the government to a corporation. Instead of depending on your family or government to feed you, you're dependent on a corporation to do so. Neither option is ideal, but you can at least vote out your government if they're too big of an asshole. But you can't with your corporation. True financial independence comes from your own individual skill sets, whether that's in the freelance gig economy or learning basic survival skills such as foraging, fishing, hunting, growing your own food, learning to cook cheap recipes, utilizing welfare and food banks and the like. Now, ultimately, all of this is a great starting point, but you're still going to need a long-term, permanent escape plan. There's all kinds of things you can do, from volunteering overseas to living in a van to extreme survivalism in the wilderness. So if you're interested in learning more about these alternative lifestyles, check out this video right here. I'll see you there.